Welcome to Built to Go, a van life podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Wagg, coming to you from the College of Curiosity. This time it's episode 304, and we're going to talk about gasoline, petrol. You know, that kind of stinky stuff that makes your van go? It's gotten super complicated, and you can't just say fill her up. We're also going to talk about TrueFuel, a possible solution for those of you who need an emergency fuel source, and a tale from the road involving crank, no start, which is no fun. Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you for joining me here once again. I went to Love's. I know that's the most exciting thing you've heard in a long time. Love's, for those of you not in the United States, is a very popular chain of truck stops, basically, but they also serve as kind of the fuel source for anybody traveling across the country on the interstates. Love's are everywhere. You've probably heard of Buc-ee's by now. Love's is like a little Buc-ee's, although they're not small. It's like Pilot or Flying J. I mean, there's a whole bunch of these different ones, but Love's is pretty common. And Love's used to have a reputation of being a pretty good place to stop, and then that reputation kind of sank a bit. And when the gas prices started going crazy in the last couple of years, Love's always had the highest gas prices, which was pretty annoying. In fact, you would see a Love's next to, like, you know, Joe Citgo or whatever, and the price could be as much as 20 cents higher. And I noticed this a lot as I was driving along I-80, which is where I do a lot of driving these days. And I thought, well, I don't know why they're doing that, because Love's model used to be that you'd go in, get gas, but then also go inside and get a Subway sub or one of those roller hot dogs or like a 6-pack of Mountain Dew or whatever. And that was kind of where they made their money. Now it seems like they're trying to make their money everywhere because the stuff inside hasn't gotten any cheaper. But that all changed. Oh, I don't know how long ago, maybe 8 weeks ago. I started noticing that the Love's prices were actually at the low end. In fact, they were often cheaper than the other gas stations. And it was like, whoa, what's going on here? Did they completely change their marketing? So I stopped at a Love's, which I had stopped doing, and got gas. And I was like, hey, look, the gas is cheaper. It was under $4 a gallon last week in central Illinois, whereas most of the other stations were, $4.09, $4.19, around there. And I thought, okay, this is great. If Love's is going to have the cheaper gas, I will stop using the QuickTime that I was using before, and I will start using Love's. That is how it works. And then I noticed something that I have not seen at Love's before. They don't sell gas. Now, what I mean by that is the gas that we've all gotten used to, which is mostly E10 in this country. That's 10% ethanol. Ethanol comes from corn. A lot of this corn you see growing is not for food. It is for making ethanol. It is simply alcohol. It's drinkable alcohol. It's the kind of alcohol that you can get in like a whiskey sour or whatever. Same kind of alcohol. You could almost think of it as vodka. But they mix that with the gasoline, and because modern cars can burn ethanol as well as gasoline to a certain percentage, that's important, it helps the local farmers and it helps stretch our petroleum supply, etc. We're going to get into this in depth, I promise you. But Love's didn't have that. They had stickers on the pumps that said E15. They were selling 15% alcohol, which is a new thing for me. It's apparently been around the Midwest, like out in Nebraska, it's been around longer. But that was all they sold. They had 3 kinds of gas, okay? They had 87, which is, quote unquote normal gas. They had 89, which is midgrade, and they had 93, which is premium. And the 87 and the 89 were both E15. What does this mean for you? Well, E15 has more ethanol in it. That means you're going to get less energy out of it than you would if it was no ethanol, because ethanol does not give as much energy per gallon as gasoline. So you're getting basically a little less for your money. But if it's cheaper, well, maybe it's worth it. Well, that's where things get very complicated. So it is cheaper, right? I mean, I just said that. Love's went down in price because now they're selling this E15 gas. That was the big secret. It wasn't that they changed their marketing, it's that they're selling basically an inferior product. But so what? Well, the so what is that if your vehicle was built before 2001, you can literally harm your engine by using this kind of gas. But if you have an older vehicle, ethanol is very bad for it. In fact, if you have a vehicle before, say, 1988 or so, any kind of ethanol in your gas is bad. Like E10 is bad. Perfect case. I have my Winnebago, right? It's a 1973 Winnebago. It has a Dodge 413 V8 in it. It's a big block engine, one of those big bubba-da, 1 gallon, 2 gallons, 3 gallons, those things that just suck gas. That engine was not designed to have any ethanol in it. And when ethanol is used in that engine, it increases corrosion, it encourages water to mix with the gas because it's not a sealed system, and you have to treat the gas to keep it pure enough for the vehicle to stay running. So, okay, that's something to know, but that's for really old vehicles. And I know there's some of you out there rolling around in these 70s sin bins, and good for you for doing it. But you have to know you have to treat ethanol gas or buy the non-ethanol gas, which you can find in some places, but it costs a lot more money. Okay, so that's one. Then E10, that is typically fine for any vehicle designed for unleaded gas, and the cutoff for that is about 1988. It varies. Unleaded gas, which for those of you who are young, they used to add lead to the gas, and it was a good thing for the engine. It was a very, very bad thing for the environment. And even though no gas ever has lead in it anymore, we still call it unleaded. It's not like they took the lead out, they just didn't put it in. But vehicles designed for unleaded gas, which would be most vehicles in the 90s and 2000s, they can use E10 pretty much okay. People will argue about this. There are a lot of people out there who just hate ethanol gasoline, and I understand. But typically, you're fine. You don't have to really worry about it that much. But the E15 is not great for those. E15 is a bit too much, and you will see wear and certain types of seals and stuff having problems with E15. And this is the information I'm getting from searching on the internet. You guys can do the same searches, and I encourage you to do so. Look at your specific vehicle and look in the owner's manual and see what it says. And the problem is with the older vehicles, these ethanol gases didn't exist, so it's not even going to mention them. But E10 has been around for a very long time, so that one should be fine. The E15, the cutoff is 2001. If you own a vehicle made after 2001, you're going to be fine with E15. The engine is designed for it, believe it or not, even though this gas didn't exist before that. The computers adjust for the different gas, and that makes all the difference. Now we need to talk about octane. Octane, there's a lot of misinformation about octane. So if you think that higher octane is better, that's actually incorrect. They call it premium fuel, but that's because it costs more. So higher octane gasoline, all it means is that it won't knock or ping at higher compressions. We can get very technical very quickly here. We really don't have to. But unless you have a sports car, you don't really need premium fuel. And if you put premium fuel in there, it isn't going to make any difference at all. There are edge cases. For example, my truck recommends, it's a Ram 1500 Classic with the 5.7 liter Hemi in it. My truck recommends 89 octane, because the engine will adjust and take advantage of 89 octane. It'll actually increase the compression to take advantage of that 89 octane, which will get more power out of the gasoline and actually can increase gas mileage a little bit. But remember that 89 costs more money. And typically, the 89 isn't worth the extra cost. You're not going to get that out of it. The times when you would want to use 89 in a truck like mine is when you're doing heavy duty. You're hauling, you're towing, or you have a big truck camper on there. Then it would make sense to use 89 because the engine's doing a lot more work. Okay? So just because it says premium and the numbers are big, it doesn't mean it's better. Now we have to mention Colorado. Folks driving to Colorado for the first time are amazed that their 87 is suddenly mid-grade and the 85 is regular gas. And what's the deal with that? Why does Colorado have crappy gas? Well, they don't. What Colorado has is less air. The air pressure is less, right? So the air pressure is less. That means the compression is less. I know it seems counterintuitive, but the fact of the matter is that in Colorado, engines don't need the same level of octane because the air pressure's taken care of that. Sure, you can't breathe, you're short of breath, you're feeling dizzy, but your engine is actually pretty happy with lower octane gas. I don't know that it saves you any money, but that's why when you go to Colorado, you'll see 85, 87, 89 or 85, 87, 90 or something like that. It's just because of the air pressure. And that's why we know that, the number of octane doesn't really mean it's better gas. Okay, I'm sorry this is so complicated, but gasoline right now is complicated. We have to mention another kind of gas which has come out in the last few years, and that is 88. 88 is this octane of gasoline that's kind of new, and if you see it at the pumps, it's usually a different color or it's somehow different. 88 tends to be E15. This is what they used to call E15. Again, if you have a 2001 or newer, it's fine, but you're not going to get as much energy out of it, and it will also be cheaper. What do you buy? Of all those things, do what your owner's manual recommends. That's the best place to go. For my truck, 87 or 89 is fine, and the 88 is also fine, any of those three. Now, you have heard of flex fuel vehicles, I'm sure. I don't know of any flex fuel vans off the top of my head. I think there may have been a flex fuel E150 at one time. Flex fuel is something completely different. It's important not to get these things mixed up. Flex fuel means your vehicle is designed to run on gasoline or ethanol. And you will see a very inexpensive form of fuel called E85. All these numbers kind of run together. E85 means sort of 85% ethanol. So it's mostly ethanol with a little bit of gas. Now, it's not really 85% ethanol, that varies, but that's what it's called. Do not put E85 in any vehicle that doesn't say flex fuel on it somewhere. It's a very specific thing. It is not compatible with engines that do not say flex fuel. So most of these are American made. There aren't that many foreign made cars that use this flex fuel type of thing, and E85 isn't even available all over the country. But in the Midwest, where there's lots of corn, it is available. So watch out for that. Do not put E85 in your vehicle unless you know it is flex fuel. Whew, got all that? It's complicated, isn't it? There's one other thing we need to talk about with gasoline, and that is top tier gasoline. It's a terrible name for what it is. Top tier doesn't really mean anything. It's not the top of anything, and there's no tiers. What it means is that it has more detergents. Now, all gas sold in the United States has detergents in it. It has to. That's the law. You can't sell gasoline without detergents. And yeah, you're thinking laundry detergent. Well, there's parts inside your engine that need to be cleaned, carbon deposits and things like that, and, glazing and stuff. And the gasoline actually cleans it. And all gasoline in the United States has detergent in it. What top tier has is more better detergent. And they have a different standard. So in order to be a top tier gasoline, it needs to be to this higher standard of detergent. So non-top tier gasoline is okay. We'll come back to that. Top tier gasoline is better. And where can you find it? Well, it's basically any major national brand of gasoline with some exceptions. For example, Sam's Club is not top tier. Costco is top tier, even though you don't know what the brand is. And then all of BP and Exxon and stations like that, they're all going to be top tier too. They're supposed to have signs that say top tier. And if they don't, it's hard to know. But you can always Google and see what type of gasoline this brand uses. Top tier is better, but what if you're somewhere in the rural zone and they don't have top tier? What are you going to do? You can just put the regular gas in. This is a long-term thing. You can run a tank of less quality gasoline through and it's not going to affect anything. at all. So that's the state of gasoline in the US right now. It's very complicated. There's all these different types of gasoline, and there's also a lot of lore and legends about gasoline and stuff, and people get crazy about it. Like they swear that Exxon works better than BP or whatever, and well, I have never experienced that. And all the thousands of gallons of fuel I've burnt, that has not really been an issue. I haven't noticed gasoline from one station or another being better or worse, unless the gasoline from a certain station was contaminated, and we'll talk more about that later. Tech Talk. I haven't talked about welding ever. And you know why? I don't know the difference between MIG and TIG, and I don't know how to weld. It's a really valuable skill. There are many, many times I wish I did. Like right now, I have a project where I want to put a wheel on a trailer, a jack stand wheel, and it's supposed to be welded on, and I don't know how, so I'm trying to figure out how to do it, and like, oh, maybe JB. No, I'm not going to use JB Weld, I promise. But I really wish I had a little welder, and you can buy them at Harbor Freight for like $120. It's not an expensive hobby to get into. But what if you are building out your van and you want some like custom accessories that need to be welded? What do you do? Well, the first thing you obviously can do is get a welder and learn how to weld. Welding is a great, amazing skill. And in fact, if you're looking for a career, I have a friend who works in the petroleum industry, and she tells me that welders make buku bucks. And even though she's an engineer, in many projects, they will make more than she does. So welding is definitely a career. It's not the most glamorous work all the time. It can be hot and dirty and a little bit dangerous, but holy cow, you can make some money. But anyway, if you want to do welding on your van, go ahead and do it, but you have to get the equipment, learn the safety rules, and then spend a lot of time, because welding is one of these things that you need practice at. It takes a lot of practice. This much I know. But for the rest of us, what if you just want a weld done on your van? Like, what do you do? Well, actually, let's back up here. What is welding? Welding is taking two pieces of metal, the same kind of metal, and making them one. Welding actually melts a little bit of each metal and then adds its own metal in the middle, that's the weld, and it makes it so it's as strong as if it were a single piece, if it's done properly. And there are times when you could want that in your van. Maybe you're building a rack or something, and you have these two pieces of metal, and you're like, geez, I don't think I can screw these together. I think a weld is the way to go. I made a joke about JB Weld earlier. JB Weld is not for this. So what do you do, though? Like, where do you go? Do you go to Welding R Us, or how do you... Basically, yeah, you do. Welding is available everywhere in the country because everybody needs welding. Any place with any sort of industry or farms or anything like that, all those folks need welding, and there's little welding shops, some of them mobile, all over the place. All you really need to do is go online and look up welding repair. Even if it's not a repair, using that search will bring you to all the people who can help you out with welds, because they're going to be willing to do little jobs. You want two pieces of metal welded together, they can handle that. I remember I had a gate on a pool that was it was an iron gate, and it had this door that swung, but it swung the wrong way. I wanted it to swing another way. And it was all welded together. And I was like, well, how can this be done? And I talked to someone who knew a welder, and he sent the welder over, and the welder simply cut off the hinges and flipped them and welded them back where they were. It looked exactly the same. It was like brand new, and then it opened the other way. And it was super strong. And I could not have done that with screws or anything like that. So there are definitely times where welding is the thing. One important note. Your vehicle has an electrical system, and most common welding today is done with electrical welding. They will attach a clamp to your van to ground it, and they will weld on it. That can fry everything in your van if you're not careful. So, if you're going to do any welding directly onto your van, make sure you disconnect the battery. From what I understand, the recommendation is to undo the ground of the battery, but if you want to be really safe, take your batteries out. Just take them out, or disconnect them completely at least. Disconnect both sides. It's going to take you another 2 minutes. That way you're safe, and the rest of the vehicle will be fine as long as the battery isn't there. So welding is a resource It's one that you can do yourself, but it will take some time and money. But then you are going to be everybody's favorite person if you bring your welder to any sort of van gathering. People will be your best friend and they will feed you and give you beer and do all kinds of things for you. So consider that too. It could enhance your social life. Product review. While we're on the topic of gas, I want to bring up something I think I've mentioned before, but it's been a while, and that is TrueFuel. TrueFuel is not like True Blood, although I guess it kind of is, because TrueFuel it's fuel, and it comes in all these different kinds, but it's gasoline. It's gasoline you buy off the shelf in a can. It doesn't come out of a pump, and you can get it at any place that sells chainsaws, basically. Home Depot has it, Menards has it, a lot of auto parts stores have it, and it's very tightly contained, very, very high octane fuel that's in a can. And the idea is that you just throw the can in your rig and you just keep it there for emergencies. It usually comes in quart sizes. So you have to figure that if your rig doesn't get very much gas mileage, how much is a quart going to get you? Well, it might get you 5 miles if you're lucky, but sometimes 5 miles is a very, very big deal. So it's worth having. This is an emergency thing for folks with small vans who don't have a space for a jerry can, and you just keep it for emergencies. My wife's car has an 8-gallon fuel tank, which is not very generous, so she has a can of TrueFuel in the back, just in case. Her car also has a stupid gas gauge that only shows you quarters. So it shows full, 3/4, half, quarter, and then empty. That's all you got. So you don't know where you are in that final quarter. Are you at the beginning? Do you have 2 gallons left? Or are you at the end? No way to know. So for her, it is a little bit of comfort knowing that if anything goes wrong, she can just throw that can in there and then drive to the nearest gas station. I mean, we live in Chicago. The nearest gas station is not that far. Now, you got to be careful with this stuff because it is not really meant for this. That's not correct. It's not its primary use. It is meant for this. It is meant to be an emergency fuel. But it's also meant for chainsaws and things like that. So you have to make sure that you get the pure gasoline, not the mix, because they've got 30-to-1, 40-to-1, and 50-to-1 mixed with 2-stroke oil that you would typically use in chainsaws and things like that. This is the best quality fuel you will probably ever put in your vehicle. And this is really high quality, stabilized stuff that will last for years. And one of the biggest advantages for people doing van life is that you can treat it just like a can of beans. You don't have to treat it any differently. If you have a gas can that you've filled up, well, you do have to treat that differently because it's got an opening that can open and close, and that can leak. It might need to be vented. There's issues with that. TrueFuel comes in just a regular old can. It's sealed. Until you open it, it's completely safe the way it is. And then once you open it, then you have to treat it like any gas can that could possibly give off vapors. So I have used TrueFuel a lot in chainsaws with Team Rubicon. Team Rubicon only uses TrueFuel in their chainsaws because they have all kinds of different people using their chainsaws and they don't ever want to mess up. Good way to kill a chainsaw is to use the wrong fuel. So that's why they do that. But I don't think it's a terrible idea to keep a can in your vehicle just in case. The bad part about TrueFuel is that it is not at all cheap. Right now, it's looking to be $12 or $13 a quart. That is some expensive gasoline. But if you're 3 miles from the nearest gas station and you run out of gas, I'm pretty sure you'd be happy to spend that $13 to be able to drive those last few miles to the gas station. So I have a link in the show notes. Yes, you can buy it on Amazon, but you can also get it just about any place that sells auto parts and stuff like that. And it's one of these things that you'd be like, why should I spend this money? I'm probably never going to need this. But when you do, you're going to be really glad to have it. And you also might run into someone else who's run out of fuel, and it'll be very easy to give them this can. And hopefully they'll pay you for it. Tales from the road. Okay, this is my last story about this topic for this episode, I promise. So I have an ATV. It's a 6-wheel drive amphibious ATV. Think like the banana buggies from Banana Splits or Space 1999. It's one of those things. It looks like a tank. It does not have a steering wheel. It has handles and you break one side. It's a skid steer, and it drives right in the water. It's a funky thing, much more common in the 70s than it is now, but I've had one before. I love these things, and it really works well for my weird property that I have on the river. That said, I went to start it and I got crank no start. Crank no start is a very interesting symptom that you can have in your van as well. And it means exactly what it sounds like. You turn the key and it goes, and it just won't start. Now, there's only two things that could be, because what you need to have an engine work is three things, okay? One of them is air, one of them is fuel, and the other is a spark. And we're talking about gasoline engines here. Diesel's a bit different. So it's cranking, so we know the battery's fine. Which of those things is missing? It's probably not air. I mean, it could be, but that's probably not it. That'd be the last thing I'd check. So spark and fuel. All right. Why wouldn't it have spark? Well, something weird would have to happen for the spark plugs not to fire. I mean, yes, something could have chewed the wires, or the plugs are off, or, something like that. And I did have this happen once where mice had chewed the wires. That is a thing. But another thing that can cause this is not getting enough fuel or getting bad fuel. And my ATV had 3/4 of a tank in it. It's got a pretty big tank, actually. So I was like, that's weird. And I'm looking and tracing down. And this thing, you can see everything, which is great. I can see the fuel line coming out of the tank, and I see it go. And it goes to a fuel filter. And then it goes into the carburetor on my Briggs & Stratton 18 horsepower Vanguard V-twin, which is a pretty little engine, but it's big for this thing. Why isn't it starting? So I don't know. And I'm looking at it, and I look, and the fuel filter's not really full. Like, there's a little bit of fuel in there, but not much. I'm thinking, okay, there's a blockage or something. So I do something kind of stupid, but this is a old-fashioned diagnostic trick that mechanics do all the time. I disconnected the fuel filter and put a funnel where the fuel filter goes. And then I poured gasoline into the funnel. And I was outside, and yes, I made a mess. And I got gasoline all over me. These are bad things. Wear gloves when you do this. Don't be an idiot like I am. I filled the funnel with gasoline, turned the key, and it started right up. Okay, problem diagnosed. I'm not going to say solved. Problem diagnosed. It's not getting fuel. Why not? Is the fuel pump bad? Well, no. I know the fuel pump isn't bad because I ran enough gas through the fuel filter that it would have needed the fuel pump to keep running, and it did. And I revved it up full speed. It revved just fine. Fuel pump is working. So this is a physical problem where gas is not getting to it somehow. Except that there was a little bit of gas dripping out of the hose that I disconnected from the fuel filter, because I disconnected both. What the heck is going on? So I went to the gas tank and I disconnected the hose that is directly on the gas tank. And fuel started pouring out, which is good, except that it looked weird. And that was a scary thing. So I captured some of it in a mason jar and I let it sit for a minute and held it up, and yeah, there was a layer formed in my mason jar. That's not good. That means there's something in there that's not gasoline, and that something is water. I have water in my fuel. What happens when you have water in your fuel is that the water sinks and the fuel rises. And the feed for most gas tanks is at the bottom or near the bottom, so the engine is sucking in water. Engines don't run on water, despite what some of the conspiracy theorists will tell you. And yeah, basically water was in my fuel line, and the fuel pump couldn't suck the water up, thankfully. And that's why the fuel filter was dry. The water is not able to go through the fuel line. I don't know exactly why that is. But that was my problem. Somehow water's getting into my fuel tank. I must have a leaking cap. The cap is very exposed. I have to diagnose that. But right now, what I need to do to fix this is two things, obviously. I need to drain that fuel tank and get all that watery gas out of there. This is the kind of water that dry gas, which, by the way, is methanol. That's just another alcohol. Dry gas is not going to fix this. Dry gas will remove a little bit of water from gasoline, but not this much. I probably have 2 gallons of water in there. That all has to come out and get disposed of, which is going to be a nightmare. And then I'm going to replace the fuel lines because it's easy. On this vehicle, which is, it's 25 years old. This is pretty old. It has rubber fuel lines. It's easy to replace them. I'm already going to have to take them all apart. I might as well just replace them. And my thought is that as soon as I do that and put fresh fuel in there, this thing's going to fire up and be fine. I tell you this story not because this is built to ATV or anything like that, but it's because a lot of this diagnosis and stuff applies to you folks, especially with older vans. Water in your fuel happens more often when you have ethanol in your fuel because ethanol is hygroscopic, which means it attracts water. And if you have something wrong with your gas cap, which is why that gas cap light can come on in your dashboard, air can get into your gas and it can collect water. And if you collect enough water, you can have exactly the symptoms I had with this. So the solution is figure out how the water is getting into the gas tank and fix that, and then replace whatever you need to do. And if you can replace the fuel filter, do that. That's an easy one. And if you can replace the fuel lines, it might be worth doing that too. It depends on the situation and what kind of a vehicle you have. For me, it's a no-brainer. $5 worth of fuel line. It'll take me 10 minutes to install. Of course, I'm going to do it. But until then, my poor ATV is being pushed around by my tractor because it's in the way. Resource recommendation. So there's a woman who makes YouTube videos, and she's been a van lifer for a long time. She's in a late model E350, kind of a shuttle bus that she's turned into a van, and her name is Bunny. Now, there's more than one Bunny doing van life. There was another Bunny who was in, I think, a Ford Transit. This is not her. This is a different Bunny, and she travels with 2 dogs. And her channel is called Bunny and Beyond. Okay? So Bunny and Beyond has been on the road for a long time, and she has good advice. And she just made a video that's almost like an episode of Built to Go, where she goes over a lot of these topics. Now, I'm going to say at the outset, I don't agree with everything she says here, but she has an interesting perspective. She's not afraid to use her platform to sell things to support herself. She has a Patreon and all that, and it's working for her, and I think that's great, and I'm all good with all that. But her basic argument is that stealth camping is dead. And not for the reason it used to be dead. I mean, stealth camping was declared dead like 4 years ago, and I have disagreed with that, and I still do. But the reason it was declared dead 4 years ago is because everyone knew that you were in a camper van. You couldn't hide the fact that you were in a camper van. Now it's dead because there's no place to park. They've taken all our parking away. You can't park at Walmart anymore. BLM land has become more restrictive or taken over by the federal government. So that's what she talks about, and she talks about solutions. And she talks about solutions specifically as a solo female traveler with 2 dogs who lives full-time on the road. And so I think it's an interesting video to watch. Again, I'm not going to agree with everything she says. You might, or you might not. It doesn't matter. She has a valid perspective, and I think it's worth checking out. So there's a link in the show notes. The name of the video is Stealth Camping is Dead, the New Rules of Van Life Nobody Wants to Talk About. And the name of her channel is Bunny and Beyond Van Life. Now, at the end, she got me really excited because she has a podcast. She's doing a van life podcast. Remember, I'm always looking for van life podcasts because I don't think there are enough of them. Unfortunately, she hasn't put out an episode since 2025, so I'm not sure what happened there, but I think it would be a very interesting thing for folks who are worried about the state of van life. She has some good stuff to say. And this only came out 11 days ago, so this isn't stale at all. A place to visit. I am going to say the word fascist a lot. And it has nothing to do with the current state of politics, believe it or not. No, I'm going to say it because Chicago has monuments to fascism, and they've been there for over 90 years. And there's a reason for this. So this is a place to visit, right? Yes, you can visit fascism in Chicago. I know it sounds funny, but let me explain. In 1933, there was a big event called the Century of Progress, and this was a world-changing world fair. Basically, there were some of the starts of Disney World were there, and a whole bunch of innovations. And one of the things that was there were flying boats, as they called them. These were seaplanes, planes that could land in the water, and they landed in the lake. But the thing that was cool about that is they flew there all the way from Italy. And in 1933, that was quite the feat. A squadron of these seaplanes came over from Italy, and the guy who led the squadron was named Balbo. Now, if you go to Chicago today, right near Millennium Park, right downtown, connecting Michigan Avenue to, I think, Columbus, you'll see Balbo Avenue. And it's still there, and it was named after this guy. Now, this guy was a fascist proudly. I mean, we're not calling him a bad name here or anything like that. This guy was a member of the fascist party. He was proudly fascist, and the street is still named after him. And this has been a topic of consternation for Chicago for many, many years, but it's still there. It used to be called 7th Avenue. And you can look and see that some of the old buildings that are still there still say 7th Avenue on them. But it's Balbo, it's been Balbo, and people still call it Balbo. And if you tell people that you're looking for 7th Avenue, they're going to say, oh, it's Balbo. So that's not really much to visit. The story is kind of cool. What is to visit is a Roman column that's a little bit hard to find. It's by Burnham Park, and it is on the site of the Italian village that was set up during the Century of Progress in 1933. And Mussolini, you may have heard his name, gave the city of Chicago this Roman column that they found when they were digging out a site near Rome. And it's the actual column. They shipped it over by ship. It wasn't on the seaplanes. That would have been too cool. They shipped it over and built it like in the middle of the Italian section of this World's Fair. And after the World's Fair left, it stayed. And it's still there. It's this pretty big column. It looks like it's a Corinthian column, although the article in Wikipedia, I'll have a link in the show notes, doesn't actually say it's a Corinthian column, but it has that, the flowery capital at the top, and the column itself is smooth. And I think that is Corinthian, but it doesn't matter. And then at the bottom, there's a base that is made out of travertine. And on each corner of the base, there is a fasces, which is where the word fascist comes from. These are sticks that are bound together, often with an axe. And I don't want to get deep into the history of fascism here, but they typically stand for government power. That was the whole idea, and that's why they were the adopted symbol of the fascist party in Italy. And you see them in the U.S. government as well. This was just a generic symbol of state power. Yeah, they used to be on the dime. The Mercury dime has them, for example, and you can see them in Congress. They're on the walls and stuff. So it's not like this symbol is inherently bad, even though it's associated with fascism. But I have to read to you what is written on the base of this column, and it's still there. I mean, this is not a place that many tourists visit. It's kind of out of the way. You have to go look for it. But it's there. And it says, this column, 20 centuries old, now 21, erected on the beach of Ostia, port of Imperial Rome, to safeguard the fortunes and victories of the Roman triremes, which were a type of warship. Fascist Italy, by command of Benito Mussolini, presents to Chicago exaltation, symbol, memorial of the Atlantic Squadron, led by Balbo, that with Roman daring flew across the ocean in the 11th year of the fascist era. That's what it says, and it's still there, and you can visit it if you come to Chicago. It's not hard to visit. It's right in the tourist section. It's actually only, I don't know, maybe 75 yards from Soldier Field, which was where the Bears play or used to play. That's still up for debate. If Soldier Field is this building, it looks like the Parthenon, except there's a UFO sitting on top of it. Yeah, Chicago's an interesting place. But anyway, this is a real thing. It really exists. And if you're ever in Chicago, I can show you. Tell you what, if you're in Chicago, drop me a line at jeff@builttogo.com. That's 2 T's, not 3, not 1. And I have a little tour of unusual things in that area to visit that most people miss. And I'd be happy to show you this. And I can also show you where Columbus used to be. Columbus is gone. They removed Columbus. I don't know where he went, but he's gone now. But the statue honoring Balbo and the Romans and the 11th year of the fascist era is still there. Well, folks, thank you very much for listening to episode 304. Music, as always, is by Simon Wagg. If you need to get a hold of me for any reason, I am Jeff at builttogo.com. That's 2 T's, not 3, not 1. And until next time, remember the words of Jerry Reed, who said, "If I'm not out of gas in the pouring rain, I'm changing a flat in a hurricane."